All right, if you've spent any time at all in data science, chances are you've heard of or probably used Jupyter Notebooks. But have you ever really stopped to think about what's going on under the hood? They're more than just a place to write code. So in this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers on this amazing tool. We'll look at what they are, how they work, and why they've completely changed the game for data and coding.
So here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with this really cool concept called the executable paper. Then we'll trace its history, from its Python roots to becoming this multi-language powerhouse it is today. We'll definitely get our hands dirty and look under the hood at the architecture. After that, we'll walk through how a data scientist actually uses one, day to day. We'll even tackle this big paradox that every notebook user faces. And finally, we'll look ahead to see what's next for this incredible technology.
Okay, let's dive right in. First things first, what is a Jupyter Notebook, really? Because I'll tell you right now, it is so much more than just a fancy code editor.
Think about it like this. Imagine a document that's, alive. It's a single place where you can write some code, run it, and bam, the result pops up right below. Then you can make a gorgeous plot from that result, and right underneath that, you can write out your thoughts and conclusions in plain English. It's not just a file, it's the entire story of your analysis, from start to finish, all in one interactive spot.
So how did we end up with something so cool? Well, to really get Jupyter, we've got to take a little trip back in time. The origin story is actually super interesting, and it tells you a lot about why it was designed the way it was.
You know, the idea of interactive computing isn't totally new. Tools like MATLAB and Mathematica were doing this stuff back in the 80s. But things really took off in 2001 when Fernando Perez created IPython, which was like a supercharged command line for Python. Then, a decade later, in 2011, they put it on the web. But the real game changer? That happened in 2014. They called it the Big Split. That's when they decided this wasn't just for Python anymore. They spun off Project Jupyter to work with any language, and that just opened the floodgates.
And you gotta love the name, Jupyter. It's so clever. It's actually a nod to its three core languages, Julia, Python, and R. Get it? But it's also a tribute to Galileo and his notebooks where he sketched out his observations of Jupiter's moons. It's this beautiful reminder that this isn't just a coding tool. It's really a modern instrument for scientific discovery.
All right, so we know what it is and where it came from. But now for the fun part. How does it actually work? I mean, have you ever really thought about what happens when you press Shift-Enter in a notebook cell? How does that code just run? Yeah, that's the big question, right? And the answer is this really elegant three-part architecture. It's a brilliant design that completely separates what you see from what's actually doing the work.
So, part one is the client. That's just your web browser. It's the part you see and interact with, the thing that renders the notebook, captures what you type, and shows you the output.
Then there's the server. You can think of it as the traffic cop or the central hub. It's running in the background, managing all your notebook files, and crucially, passing messages back and forth between your browser and the computational engine.
And finally, we get to the real brain of the operation, the kernel. This is a totally separate process that's actually executing your code. It takes the code for, say, Python, runs it, and then sends the result back. And here's the magic trick. Because the kernel is separate, you can swap it out. You can have a Python kernel, an R kernel, a Julia kernel. There are kernels for over 100 different languages. That's what makes Jupyter so incredibly powerful and flexible.
So let's put it all together. You're in your browser, you hit run on a cell. The browser, the client, bundles up that code and sends it to the server. The server looks at it and says, this is a Python notebook, and forwards the message to the Python kernel. The kernel executes the code, generates the output, maybe a number or a plot, and sends that back to the server. The server then passes it right back to your browser, which displays it for you. It's this seamless little loop that happens every single time you run a cell.
Okay, that's the tech behind it, but what does this mean in practice? Let's look at how this setup enables a really common and powerful workflow, especially for data scientists.
You know, a typical data science project isn't a straight line. It's more like a cycle. You start by importing your libraries, your tools. Then you load up some data, you poke around, explore it, look for errors, maybe make a quick plot. Then you do some cleaning. After that, you might build a model. And finally, you visualize your findings and write down your conclusions. The beauty of the notebook is that you can do all of this, piece by piece, cell by cell. You can go back, tweak something, and rerun just that part. It's the perfect iterative environment for discovery.
But, and this is a big but, that incredible flexibility we just talked about, it comes with a catch. The notebook's greatest strength is, in a weird way, also its greatest weakness.
And it all comes down to this idea of reproducibility.
I mean, think about it. The whole point is that you can run cells in any order you want. You can run cell 5, then cell 2, then cell 10. This non-linear freedom is what makes it so amazing for exploring data and just trying things out.
So here's the problem. What happens when the code you see on the page doesn't match the state of the kernel's memory? Let's say in cell 2, you define a variable x equals 5. Then later, in cell 10, you change it to x equals 10. Then you go back up and run cell 3, which uses x. Which x does it use? The one from cell 10, of course. But someone reading your notebook from top to bottom would be completely confused. This is what we call hidden state, and it can be a nightmare.
So you've got this conflict. What you see is the nice, linear order of cells in your notebook, but what's real is the hidden state of the kernel, which depends on the chaotic, non-linear order you actually ran the cells in. This is the reproducibility paradox. You can end up with a notebook that runs perfectly for you, but when you send it to a colleague, they run it from top to bottom and get completely different results, or just a bunch of errors.
This is why it's so important to think of notebooks and traditional IDEs like VS Code or PyCharm as different tools for different jobs. A notebook is absolutely fantastic for that initial exploration, for analysis, and for reporting your findings. But when you need to build a robust, reliable application, that's where an IDE shines. They're built for linear execution, version control, and serious debugging. The best workflow, honestly, is often using both. Explore and prototype in a notebook, then refactor that code into a proper script in an IDE.
So, where do we go from here? Let's wrap up by looking at how the entire Jupyter ecosystem is evolving, both to tackle these challenges we've talked about and to push the boundaries of what's possible.
The ecosystem is growing like crazy. We've got Jupyter Lab, which is this next-generation interface that feels much more like a full-blown IDE. There's Jupyter Hub, which makes it easy to run notebooks on a server for entire teams or classrooms. We have amazing services like Binder, which lets you share a fully reproducible environment with just a single click. And the really exciting stuff on the horizon, things like true real-time collaboration, think Google Docs for code, and the integration of generative AI right into the notebook to help you write and understand code.
And this all leads to one final, really big question to think about. As notebooks get smarter and more collaborative, are they still just a tool for exploration? Or are they actually evolving into the primary medium for science itself, a whole new way for us to think, to create, and to share our discoveries with the world? It's a pretty exciting thought, isn't it?